Welcome to SSDD Studio. We hear things all the time, but how might we pick up information in the noise that surrounds us?
Our next speaker will share tools for designing objects and services that generate sound. Here from the studio in Discourse, which we are in right now, is Silas Bieri with his presentation Designing Things We Hear.
Tack så mycket. Thank you very much. Very nice to be here on my own stage. I am one of the owners and the founder of the studio where we are, in the middle of Lokstallarna, in the middle of this incredible environment where everybody has been talking about facilitation and that this is soon going to be the new cultural center. Hopefully, we have been here since 7 years and we produce all kind of different things. In the last 3 years, though, we have been working very closely together with South and Sweden Design Days in order to make this South and Sweden Design Days happen. It didn't happen in the first 2 years because, or not in the expected scale because of the pandemic. And now we are here, luckily. At that point, as I am the last speaker now here on stage, I would like to send out a big thank you to the team of South and Sweden Design Days. Extremely dedicated to go through with all this, and also to my team that have been producing this stream in these 2 days. Thanks Alexis, Theo, Emma, Gustav, Johan, and also Jessica and Emma who have been here the whole time. If it's not SSDD studios that we produce, then we produce often art. That can be performing art, that can be music. But we also produce things that is more maybe business oriented, or products that are more business oriented, like media. That can be films for companies, or sound design for games, or for apps, or for interaction design, all these kind of things. And just one short thing, all the images that you see here and that you will see also during the presentation are images from our productions, are images from most of them images from Alexis, who is sitting there and cutting the stream right now. Yes, and if we are not a facilitator, everybody is speaking about us as a facilitator, then I'm also a handcrafter. So I'm not only here running around for South and Sweden Design Days, but I also have my own handcraft, which is sound design. So I work with sound. That means I work mostly with my ears. And if we speak about design, usually the first thing that comes to mind is visual, right? In Sweden, the Swedish word for design is formgivning. Someone who is a formgiver is not necessarily someone who is doing sound. But then, what is a sound designer? And many people don't really know what a sound designer is. It's a very, very large thing. But the sound designer can be the guy who does that kind of sounds. Now, I'm not doing that the whole day, of course, but I have been working with Foley for film. I have been playing that whistle. I have been working as a creator for software, for hardware, for interaction sound, creating interaction sounds, you know, the things that you have on your phone. But I'm also a sound engineer. I work for one of the major classical orchestras in Germany as a sound engineer. I have been working on films, on performances, on dance performances, all kind of things within sound design. But you see, this branch is extremely wide. I haven't covered all of it, but I have been doing a lot of sound things in this over 20 years that I am a sound designer. But the branch is extremely large. I would say it's as large as if we would say to 90% of the people that we have been heard talking now that they would be visual designer. What would that even mean? I give a very quick presentation. I don't have so much time. I want to talk about the importance of the sonic environment, of the sound that surrounds us, and I want to try to see how this sonic environment maybe integrates into other design, into products or software or these kind of things. If there's any language that is unclear, just ask questions. One of my main my main topics is this little phrase here: everything makes sound. If sound is absent, it should be on purpose. We will come back to that. the atmosphere on our planet has been in the last couple of 100 million years rather stable, right? The fauna and the flora and all existence, all biological existence that developed in this period until today has had a rather similar environment. And in that environment we have sound and we have light that has not developed so much neither. And of course in this long period of development everybody has its own, or everybody, or all existence has its own way to react to these things. We all know the little films of, or we all, the little films of the sunflower looking to the sun. We know how plants react if they don't get any light, and it should be logical actually that plants are reacting as much to sound as they do to light. Until a couple of years ago, that was not scientifically proven, but we know today that plants are actually listening to where the best water flows are. It's logical. All animals that have been developed during the evolution have hearing or some form of receptors for the acoustic environment, and have of course receptors for the visual environment as well. And most of them use sound for communication, and most of them use the absence of sound for also something. To be quiet, to approach, to be quiet, to go and chase someone. Absence of sound is as important as the sound. Throughout the genesis of mankind, and with the development of culture in mankind, the acoustic environment became extremely important. We know that early caves, for example, have been more populated if they had a good acoustic. Very early in human culture, we find temples, we find churches that are, of course, acoustical buildings. The early churches, they didn't really have windows even. That was before the possibility of creating big glass windows. So it was mostly actually acoustical environments. And we have a very nice acoustical environment that is here. Usually when I go with people into the train hall, here on the side where the Southern Sweden Design Days are, the first thing is, oh my God, this is so big. And the second thing they say is like, wow, this acoustic environment. So, so much about the awareness of the acoustic environment. We all have that, of course. And I think it is a cultural facilitator. It's a fundament for cultural development. Here, this is another acoustic building that is in the center of Malmö. They could have built a bank there. It's the best spot in town. They decided to build a Philharmony. I'm extremely thankful for that. I think it's a fantastic building. The image comes from the production that we did last year with Sebastian Müllart. Heavily cultural development and a heavily cultural building, sound designed building in the center of Malmö. Then this is an image from the studio here before we started working, and we have heard a lot of talking about social innovation and facilitating of the environments. Is acoustic environment also a fundament for social innovation? It's a question. We have taken this place mostly because it had such an amazing acoustic. The ceiling that we have here, which is absorbent, gave us the possibility to produce this studio where we have this extremely concentrated sound that we are listening to right now. So yes, there is a lot about acoustic environment. I want to say a little bit something about the difference between light and sound, because there is some fundamental differences actually. Light, and with light I mean also everything that we see, of course. Light is rather consistent. Light moves quite quickly across our atmosphere. It's not heavily influenced by the atmosphere, by the air that we have on the planet and by the obstacles. Because it's extremely fast. It's 300 million kilometers per second or something like that. That's not a dimension on Earth. That is a dimension that's much larger than Earth. And that's, of course, the reason why we are not really influenced by that. Everything we see is happening in real time. If I run away, my shirt will stay the exact same color right now. If I run fast or if I run slow, I'm not able to run as fast as the light. This is very different in sound. As soon as I start moving with this speed of sound that we have of only 340 meters per second, that's about half the train hall. So you can cross the train hall in half a second, the sound. And the fact that sound is moving within the atmosphere, so it's transported by air, makes sound extremely unstable, actually. It's not consistent. You know, everybody knows the ambulance. Should be sound of an ambulance coming. No? Okay, then I dropped the sound. Alexis, can you see if you can switch on the sound here of this? Not sure if it's... Everybody knows the Doppler effect, you know. You know the sound of the ambulance coming. The frequency of the sound changes because of the speed of the ambulance. And that is not because that's not how we hear it. That's how the sound actually at that moment exists. So if we talk about sound, and often we talk about, you know, the waves, we should talk more as a three-dimensional, constantly changing structure, maybe more like a Fata Morgana kind of thing. And that's the only visual influence. In these super extreme situations, we have some visual influence from the air. Otherwise, there's nothing there. It's also, of course, very different how we receive sounds and how we receive light. With the binaural reception that we have on our ears, we can hear 360 degrees around our head. That's simple. We can have almost 300 degrees vertically. It's a little bit cut off by our shoulders here, but otherwise we can receive a lot here. And we can do that with extreme precision in these 360 degrees. We can make a little test, a little example together. If you close your eyes, and then you tell me where the bird is. Close your eyes. Point at the bird. Everyone, open the eyes. It's a simple one, huh? You know exactly where the loudspeaker is. Everybody. It's I think by a couple of centimeters. It's also something that you can do now. There's a lot of birds. You can do the test, go out, listen to the bird, try to catch it with your eyes. And that is the big difference from the eyes to the hearing, from the sight to the hearing, is actually that our sight is very narrowed down. We have about 30 degrees of focus area. That's the one that is now should be pointing at me. And then we have maybe 60 degrees, so around 15 degrees on each side, where we can see, where we have a good color ratio, where we see a lot of colors. And then on the outside it goes very quickly out of control. Here we see a little bit of three-dimensionality. And then we can barely see our arms here anymore. And if you go here to the back, I cannot see my arms anymore. But I know where they are anyway, because I can flip with my fingers. And I can turn my head towards them. That's also very practical. Of course, sight is extremely collaborating with our hearing. We hear, we look, we focus with our eyes, we constantly hear sound. And that's the other thing with our eyes. That's what I said before. When we try to imagine where the bird is, we closed our eyes. We are totally capable of closing our eyes. We do that about 15 to 20,000 times per day, and several times a day we do that for a longer period, several hours maybe. I don't know how your sleeping processes are. But in this time of sleeping, we are usually not getting any visual information, while we get a lot of audio information. I imagine that all of you have alarm clocks that wake you up in the morning. They usually do that with a sound, right? It's not possible really to to switch off the ears in the same sense. Now, how can we use this for designing products or for choosing materials, or how can we integrate this know-how and this the more know-how of sound into social innovation or in design? And I think there is a first very important thing to be aware of. Everything makes sounds, and if the sound is absent, it should be on purpose. All materials that we work with, if we design, make sound. It's important that we find an awareness of that, as much as we have awareness of texture. The designers, they have extreme, I see the products out here, incredible awareness of texture, of color, not so much awareness of sound. But even the packing, like if you have a packing like that, is the sound that this packing match, is that something positive? I mean, it could be, right? Like everybody likes the popping of the but is this really the sound that we want to have when we, for example, unpack an object that is packed in this kind of things? Is the sound of these coins, is this a positive sound or a negative sound? There's so many references to these kind of things. So the awareness should be bigger, I think. Here's a diaper. It's an ecological diaper that I have for my kids. Very well working. The sound makes me dizzy. Like it's a horrible sound. I have other diapers that I use for Foley. Works very well. These diapers don't work. They have a very weird sound. So that the awareness is not there. Maybe I'm also extremely sensitive to that, but the awareness is not really there. I have lately been in Paris. I wasn't there for almost 3 years due to the pandemic, and then I was there a couple of weeks ago for a production. And the acoustic environment of the city has drastically changed in a very positive way, because most of the buses, motorcycles, delivery vans and trucks, and a lot of the cars turned into electric vehicles. The city development that can happen due to the fact that you have tenth of decibel less traffic noise is absolutely changing. And that, I would say, that is totally going into these discussions that we heard here of social development and city development. I don't know how much awareness there was about that. And then when we started here now with the Southern Sweden design, there's SST Studio, and Anne came in with these wonderful tables. That it hit me strongly that they make an incredible sound. Now, what kind of a reference does this give to us? The first thing that I thought about was either this, which is a meditation bowl from Tibet. The second thought I had, it's maybe more like the doorbell, but obviously there is an enormous sound design. They are still sustaining. It's enormous sound design in these tables. I don't know if Blåstation was aware when they were building them. If they were, piece of genius, in my opinion. If they were not, I love it even more, because there was world's best coincidence. But what is interesting with it is, like, what kind of reference do we get from that? Like, what does it trigger in us? And sound is trigger so many things. I could go into psychoacoustics now for hours and talk for hours about that, about, you know, how you can get goosebumps, or how you can get emotional, how you can remember things. Now, unfortunately, my sounds here are not really working, but it doesn't matter. We all know about sonic branding. If we hear the Game Boy startup sound, ding, is the sound that gives us joy, that makes us happy. If we hear the startup sound from an old Macintosh, it might make us happy. There's so much sonic branding in these objects. and all that is, of course, a reference to sonic environments. To round up, I would have one more important thing to say about sound, which is about is the question that we have to ask ourselves: where and what time do we consume what kind of sounds? Probably all of us listen to music, or most of us, which is some kind of sound. We don't listen to the same music in the morning and in the evening, right? We cannot have the same kind of acoustic environment in the morning and in the evening when we are working, when we are productive or not, when we are maybe making sports. That is extremely changing, and all of us know that. Now, this applies, of course, also to all kind of other sounds. That applies to interaction sounds, that applies to the sound that our environment makes, that applies to the sound that we want to have from objects and the sound we don't want to have from objects. Yeah, of course, something I didn't say before, there is also many sounds that are created by objects, and that's interesting for designers as well, that are unwanted and that are generated by maybe design necessities, for example, noise, ventilator noises, or the noises of scratching on the floor because of certain textures. So that is also something to take into consideration. And this in combination with at what time we want to listen to them. But I think now I would like to listen to some good music. And for those who are here, you're very welcome to stay with us. We're going to have a little drink here. It has been the last presentation. That's it. Thank you very much.